kind of hard to toe that line because you want to have respect for the defense, but you also want to say, hey, our offense, we want to see y'all throw some punches too. And they've thrown punches on days, but it's usually only the days when there's not pads on. So there's starting to be a pattern as we've kind of turned the switch on and off in terms of full pads. There is some I guess, reasons or excuses, but it did not look good at all. And like I said, this is probably their worst performance as an offense since I've been in any of these camps, and this is day 8. Day 8 of the Carolina Panthers training camp, I would probably call it a record-setting day. There was a lot of new things that happened today. Today was probably the hottest it's ever been out of all the practices. I've been to all of them, and today was different. I'm not gonna lie. I really just stopped sweating. But also, it was probably the highest attendance that I've seen at one of these regular practices that wasn't Fan Fest or the Back Together event where they're in the college stadium. There were cars everywhere. The line was ridiculously long. But also, today was probably the worst practice that the offense has had all camp, man. We got a lot of stuff to break down. We're going to talk about that a little bit more. You guys know what I do, man. This is training camp breakdowns with Aaron Duncan. As usual, like I do in all my videos, I have the 3 biggest takeaways, the play of the day, and then the rapid fire notes at the end of the video. So make sure you watch the whole video. We're starting right now. What up, though? It's Aaron Duncan here at the Necessary Blunt and Sports Talk, recap and analysis of the Carolina Panthers, and I am here at training camp in the upstate of South Carolina. Yes, the Greenville, Spartanburg, Anderson area. I traveled up here on the highways and byways for training camp, so I'm here. So if you want to stay up to date on these recaps that I'm doing daily for every practice that I will be attending, make sure you hit that subscribe button and the bell icon. That way you get notified when I drop videos because, like I said, daily breakdowns are coming. We got clips. I got in-depth information, a lot of exclusive content that you're not getting anywhere else. So please hit that subscribe button. And also, give the video a thumbs up. Yes, please like the button. It doesn't cost you a thing. Only takes 2 seconds, and it helps me out tremendously in the algorithm. We've had a ton of growth since training camp has started. I appreciate everybody that has been a part of the journey that subscribed. I also appreciate all the people that have left super chats to support me and with my gas money fund, I guess, to get back and forth on these highways to get to camp. So I really appreciate that as well. And if you also want to support, you can leave a super thanks yourself down below. It's the heart button with a $sign in it. It really just a tip jar, I guess, for me as a creator, because I am an independent creator. I am not stationed or owned or sponsored by any team. So I'm doing this on my own on the independent grind. So if you want to support an independent grinder or a content creator like your boy that's covering the Panther, you'll leave a super thanks. So let's talk about this offense as a whole, because I usually talk about Bryce Young specifically, everyone, but I want to talk about the offense as a whole. We'll talk about Bryce Young, of course. Bryce Young and the whole offense struggled. Bryce Young was holding on to the ball a lot this time because people were tending to struggle to get open at times, and there was just a lot of different things going on, a lot of confusion. Everything as a whole was just off. There was a lot of pre-snap penalties. I think they told me 4 false starts total. Just a lot going on. The refs were out there again, and they were on our offense hard. Like it just seemed very sloppy. Sometimes getting in and out of the huddle took a lot longer than it should have. It was just procedure-wise, it was just a lot going on. And I talked about that heat playing a factor, and I'll get into that a little bit, but these are the dog days of summertime. This is day 8 in camp. You've been hitting the same guy that you already know across from you every day. Stuff starts to get old. This is when your mental is tested and you face some adversity, and that's exactly what this offense did. I mean, it just seems like they were in full pads, and if you've been watching before, that first day in full pads, what happened? The defense really took it to the offense and hit them in the mouth and really just stayed on them, and they were just the aggressor. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes you have to decide if you're going to be the hammer or you're going to be the nail. And the defense has pretty much made their mind up to be the nail. We'll talk about the defense in a little bit more detail in the next biggest takeaway, but they took it to the offense. And in the offense, to give them credit, there is some I guess, reasons or excuses, but it did not look good at all. And like I said, this is probably their worst performance as an offense since I've been in any of these camps, and this is day 8. So that's just about where they were today, and that should tell you a lot. It was hot. I keep emphasizing it was hot, but come on. No, there was no red zone scoring pretty much in that first set of team drills with the 11-on-11 with that group. It was really a struggle. There were a lot of drop passes. Chuba dropped the pass. Mingo dropped the touchdown that Bryce Young put pretty much in his bread basket. There were some other drops by other receivers as well, and it was just not a lot of rhythm going on. Nothing really could get established. It just seemed off. I mean, there's no better way to describe it. You know what I'm saying? Like, the decision making wasn't sharp. There were a lot of throwaways by Bryce. It just didn't seem like things were in sync. And I don't know what exactly it was. Like I said, was it all the adversity? Frank Wright, I try to provide some context for you guys because I'm talking as a fan, but also as a reporter. But Frank Wright also mentioned in his post-practice presser, say that 5 times fast, that he's not overly concerned because this is the time they want to see making mistakes. That way they can go to the film room and break things down, which is cool. We talked about that before, wanting Bryce to make those mistakes in practice, but it's kind of hard to toe that line because you want to have respect for the defense, but you also want to say, hey, our offense, we want to see y'all throw some punches too. And they've thrown punches on days, but it's usually only the days when there's not pads on. So there's starting to be a pattern as we've kind of turned the switch on and off in terms of full pass. But Frank Wright also talked about the fact that they're not game planning. This is the sixth, I guess, install day for them. So they're installing a lot of concepts, which in a real game, they may not run against certain coverages that the defense is putting in because the defense is installing coverages as well. I talked to you guys yesterday about them adding man coverage and then really testing our receivers. They're adding coverage as well. So maybe a lot of the plays that the Panthers offense is installing just isn't good against the defense that the Panthers defense is installing. And Frank Wright talked about that because in a game week, if they see certain coverages, they have certain plays that they like to run against certain coverages. In practice now, they're just kind of running whatever's on the card, whatever they went over, whatever's in the next page of the playbook. So there's a little bit of, rough around the edges in terms of that and what it's going to look like when you're on the field. But regardless, I still expect to see a little bit better than that. And let me take my reporter hat off. As a fan, it was very concerning. But I understand because of the heat, the circumstances. And like I said, my perspective was the defense just hit them in the mouth. I want to see what they do the next day. Or hopefully they have full pass tomorrow. We'll see because they're on tomorrow, off Monday, have a regular practice, and then those 2 joint practices, I know they're going to be full pass. So we'll see how Frank Wright tries to treat them because today's practice was hard. It was tough. Literally everybody in their pressers looked exhausted. Keith Taylor was sweating like a pig. Bryce Young, he was sweating hard too, and he looks exhausted as well. It was just a rough day out there, and even me as a fan, I was out there dragging like I was running routes, but I was just sweating sitting in my seat. So I know those guys were struggling with all that equipment on. You guys let me know down below in the comments how you feel about Frank Wright talking about like the offense not only installing certain plays that may not go against certain plays. Like if it was a real game week, there'd be a little bit better game plan because some of those coverages, I guess, didn't go right with what the offense is trying to run. So I want to get you guys' thoughts about if you kind of feeling what he's saying or you're a little bit skeptical and like, all right, man, whatever you say, you're going to keep a close eye on. Next thing I want to talk about is that defense because the defense today, like I said, they installed a lot of things. And what I noticed that was distinctly different from before is they put in, I wouldn't even really call it a dime package. They put in a 3-2-6, I guess. 3D linemen, 2 linebackers, and 6 defensive backs. And for the most part, the group I saw was Derek Brown in the middle as their D lineman, and obviously Brian Burns and Etor on the ends. Obviously, Etor and Kobe Jones were doing their rotational thing like they always do. But those are the 2 guys on the edge. That's the 3 down linemen. The 2 linebackers were Frankie Louvu and Shaq Thompson, of course. Obviously, Deion Jones will be in the rotation eventually, but the DBs I saw obviously were the usual suspects, but the usual suspects of the starting secondary, it would be Xavier Woods, Von Bell, Jeremy Chin, of course, Keith Taylor that we saw today, and Dante Jackson and J.C. Horn. Keith Taylor being on the outside, maybe it'll be him and C.J. will probably rotate, but of course J.C. is going to be playing inside and playing that nickel type of corner as well. So heavy on the DB, of course, lighter on the front, a 3-man front. So like I said, it was a lot more shell coverage, a little bit softer coverage, which is why, like I said, some of the offense wasn't really working against it. Regardless, I loved what Keith Taylor said in his post-practice presser. He let it kind of slip out that, yeah, we dominated today, but he didn't mean to say it because it's not like they did dominate. It was 100% true, but you don't want it to come off that in the media like y'all just to compete with each other.
I think it was a lot of great communication. We not dominated, but tried to dominate. But just competing overall.
They are competing. It's like that offense-defense dynamic in the locker room, but at the same time, it's still all on the same team. But Keith Taylor kind of let that slip. It was pretty funny to me. But what also Keith said is that, because we rarely hear from Keith Taylor in terms of interviews, he said that he had been working on his press man coverage this offseason, trying to get back to where he was before. He didn't really specify how he felt about where he was before. But I think if you've been watching Panthers football, you remember that his rookie year, he was actually a pretty solid corner, and he showed a lot of promise in the small moments that he had. He has that length, he has that size, and that pays off playing press. And so he's taken some lumps this camp, but he's also been up to the task on a lot of covers on this team. So I really see the promise in Keith. I see the work that he's put in, and I'm really, really happy about that. But he also talked about why they think the defense is where it is and why players love it so much. We never really got a ton of details about Phil Snow, but what all the players are pretty much saying, the messaging is clear from the coaching staff. Your assignments are clear. It's nothing complicated. There's not really much to miscommunicate about. Yeah, you have certain responsibilities, but you really just have to do your job. They give it clean, cut, straight up instructions. You don't have to worry about anything flipping or whatever. Obviously, there's some shifts and motions and changes, but for the most part, it's pretty plain vanilla and it's based off execution. If you do your job correctly and you stay in the position you're supposed to be, the defense will work. That seems like a good recipe. That way, I told you guys all the time, football players, they're not robots. Yes, like on Madden, you see the line, they're going to run that exact line. But in real life, a post is not going to look like the same way all the time. Sometimes you have to be a football player. You can't be a robot. You got to be a football player. And especially on defense, especially when you're reacting to a lot of the offense's tendencies and stuff like that. So you got to let your instincts take over. You can't really be out there thinking. And so watering down the system, making it a lot more simple. That way guys can just go out there and use their talent. They're not worried about letting the mental part overlap their actual God-given ability. I like that approach. And it's obviously been paying dividends for these guys. I'm very, very, very optimistic about this defense. I'm loving what I'm hearing. Ejiro Rivera, man, he's been in the lab. We'll get a good test, obviously, next week against the Jets because they have a top-notch quarterback, have some top-notch receivers and running backs as well. It'll be a great test for this defense just to see where they're at because, like I said, they're facing a rookie quarterback every day in practice. What's going to happen when they go against a wily vet like A-Rod? You guys, let me know how you feel about this dominant defense and keep Taylor's comments about them kind of simplifying the defense and that approach. I want to get you guys thoughts on that approach because some guys like to add a bunch of different schemes and try to confuse quarterbacks, and some they'll just say, we're going to line up, we're going to do some things, of course, but we're going to play football. You know what I'm saying? Just execute. So I want to get you guys' thoughts on those different approaches from, I guess, Phil Snow and what he was running towards Ejiro Rivero's kind of philosophy. And the last biggest takeaway is the wide receiver group. I want to talk about. I voiced my concerns yesterday about them struggling against man coverage, and there were some drops today as well. Like I said, I think the heat was kind of getting to people, but one-on-ones look pretty good. But the rest of it, guys weren't on the same page. Guys weren't paying attention when the ball was coming their way. Like Ian Thomas missed one on a pick that Andy Dalton threw. It just seemed off, like I kept saying before. And they just forced Bryce into holding the ball more, trying to dance around a lot more in the pocket to buy time. And it just looked like a chaotic mess, a hot mess, literally a hot mess. It was scorching outside, so it was a hot mess. I think that's perfect way to characterize the offense today. However, this wide receiver group, DJ Chark does have those things that he's been doing. He's been getting stuff on Keith Taylor, but I guess when they start running more man coverage, he starts facing JC a little bit more at times. They get a little bit hairy, you know what I'm saying? That's really going to test that metal. Yes, he still makes his plays and stuff like that because he's a good guy, but we haven't seen the typical highlights that we have been from DJ Chark lately. So I'm going to be keeping a close eye to see, okay, how are you guys going to keep adjusting? Are you going to be consistent? You know what I'm saying? I want to see consistency from these guys because I know our weapons on our team are much maligned across the league, and I try not to look too much into it, but the way things the past 2 days have gone, I wouldn't be surprised if you see Scott Fitter working the phone lines potentially to see if there's anybody available to bring in some more talent, just to bring some juice to this because it's been tough. It's been a tough couple of days, but I don't know if it's time to panic because it's still early in camp. But it's definitely something that could be a long-term concern. But I will say today, Jonathan Mingo had a pretty phenomenal start to the day until he dropped a terrible pass. That was a touchdown. He beat JC on the crosser. Bryce Young laid it out perfectly, and he just dropped it. I'll show the clip right here. And on a day where things aren't going your way, when there's opportunities like this, you want to see that rookie make that play. You guys have been asking questions about how Mingo has done. Today, he had a pretty good day. He had potential highlight of the day or play of the day. And unfortunately for me, it was on the far field, so I really didn't get to record that rep. But he made a guy fall. It wasn't really play today because the guy just kind of fell over his feet. It wasn't anything special that Mingo did, but we'll talk about it a little bit more later. It can be an honorable mention, but Mingo had a good day overall, except that drop. The guy that I'm really, really happy about having, yes, yesterday's Player of the Day winner, Terrace Marshall Jr. has stacked together multiple good days. It seems ever since FanFest, he's had good days in a row every time. I gave him player. Like I said, I was so happy to see that long ball that he caught yesterday. Maybe he watches the show and saw the encouragement and started playing better because he probably had the busiest day out of the whole group. Probably had the most catches for sure. And it was only a matter of time. You know, I was expecting this. We want to see obviously carry over to the joint practices and the season. But this guy, every year he's been on the Panthers, he's had a dominant training camp. I just don't feel like the year that he actually has a better quarterback, probably the best quarterback that he's had in his career, that would be the year that he kind of just does nothing or lays an egg in camp. Nah, I knew it was only a matter of time, and I was patient about it. I'm so happy to see Terrace getting a lot more work. I just didn't, like I said, I just didn't think it would be any way that he would just go quiet into the night. When he's usually been a tear for this camp. TMJ definitely had a great day today. A lot of good catches. It was the one-on-ones. He looked good as well. It was just a great day for him, even though that most of the offense didn't have much of a bright spot as a whole. You guys let me know your level of concern about this receiver group with Terrace kind of ascending and the other one's kind of like, looking a little suspect over the past 2 days. I want to get how you guys feel because it's been some drops. It's been some struggles for some guys to get open against man. Like I said, at least with Terrace emerging, we have a little bit more promise. But do you think we should probably add a little bit more talent to the wide receiver room, or do we need to upgrade somewhere? Because we have 15 wide receivers on the roster right now, but it seems like there's some struggles going on, and we don't want to have our quarterback having to hold on to the ball a long time because we know he's smaller in stature. We know we don't want him taking extra hits, and when you hold on to the ball longer, extra hits may come. So I want to get you guys level of concern on that. So the play of the day is going to go to honorable mention, of course, to Jonathan Mingo making that guy fall. But the play of the day has to go to Damiere Byrd. Damiere Byrd, I did not know he had this in his game. I have to apologize. I am a Gamecock fan, but I have never seen this for Damiere Byrd. He's not that big, but he is super fast. He's a track guy. He caught a nasty back shoulder fade that it was so dope, I didn't even know it was him. I'll play the clip. Yeah, man, I didn't know that Damiere had that in him. I was pleasantly surprised, and he's been gunning for that. Obviously, him in that 5th and 6th receiver positions with him and Shi Smith are battling. But making highlight plays like this is good way to get you on the roster for sure. But shout out to Damiere Byrd for the play of the day. All right, it's time for the rapid fire. Of course, let's start with the injuries. On the injury front, Chandler Zavala was activated and was back in pass today. I couldn't really tell exactly how much he did. I'm sure they're going to ease him into it, but I told you guys we were going to watch it, see if he can make it through before the end of the weekend, or was it going to be maybe Tuesday of next week before he came back, because Frank Wright kind of hinted at that. But he was back in pads. He was activated, so there's no reason to have to cut any player because he was already on the active roster. So there's no corresponding move to make roster space. So Zavala's back. Next up, Rajon Wright returned to practice as well. He actually got in, and I saw him making some plays in the red zone period, so I was happy to see him back and moving. We never really ever got detail about what that injury was, so the world may never know. In training camp, you don't have to put out an official injury report like during the regular season, so we don't know. Marquise Haynes continues to be out with that back injury. They asked Frank Wright about that in the post-practice presser, and he hinted at they've been monitoring free agency, just depending on how Marquise Haynes' injury progresses. They've been monitoring free agency to see if they need to make a move. So I told you guys that I didn't think that they were going to make any edge additions. However, it seems like even the Marquise was a big part of what they were going to be depending on, because he has, in the opportunities he's gotten in his career, 4 or 5 sack seasons or whatever. That's pretty good for very limited action. So it seemed like they might have been counting on him a lot in the rotation. So they feel like they need to actually go out there, even with the ascension of a guy like Kobe Jones and Iku Leota. So I pay attention to adding to that talent pool. Like, let me know how you guys feel in the comments about us potentially adding an edge still at this point, even with some younger guys maybe emerging. I just literally made a video yesterday about edge guys emerging. Something weird happened. Miles Sanders actually tweaked something in individual drills, so he didn't go out for team. I didn't see him at all, so I thought he just had a vet day. But according to Frank Wright, after practice, he tweaked something. Didn't really disclose where he tweaked it. I assume it's his lower body. Frank said they didn't want to press it, so they just shut him down for the day. We won't know probably. Like I said, they don't have to do an injury report. But we'll find out if it's something to be concerned about tomorrow. If he's out completely tomorrow. We've been in a position with Chuba Hubbard as running RB1. However, even me, a Chuba truther, I'm a little concerned if Miles is going to miss some extended time. And we'll see how serious that tweak is according to that. But speaking of a legit vet days, Von Bell, the safety, he took a vet day. He was the only player today. Taylor Moton returned today after his vet day yesterday. And Cam Irving almost causing disaster for this franchise and being the most hated man in Charlotte. So that's pretty much the injury front. But the Heat, man, the next rapid fire topic was the Heat. It was hot. And big boys like Derrick Brown was really struggling out there. He was in the squad a bunch of times in between plays, huffing and puffing. With that running that soft shell coverage, he was doing a lot more pass rushing. He was really struggling, man. I could see guys going in and out all the time just because they were exhausted on the sideline. They would take their helmets off just to kind of get some air and breathe in that heat. And Spartanburg Heat ain't no joke, man. This is the South. A lot of these guys are from the South. Derrick Brown's from Georgia. Brian Burns is from Florida. But it still get real in the field. Frank Wright, he's got to be a cruel man to pick the hottest practice of training camp to have a legit 2-hour practice and be that in full pads. It was really, really tough. And like I said, it was pretty long practice of being pads. Like I said, I was in regular clothes and I was over there preheated or getting rotisserie, like some people were saying out there in that heat. And it was just a tough thing to do. But kind of injury, LeBron Ray, the guy we picked up a couple, probably earlier last week, he was carted inside because of heat exhaustion. And it was really scary. He was laid out. All I could really see was his legs like hanging off of the cart because the trainers were like covering him up, I guess, to try to give him some shade and some like as much as they could do to cool him down while they were out there. He's expected to be okay, but that stuff is scary, man. Like I said, in that type of heat, man, we've heard stories about horror stories about guys, especially just collapsing at workouts and different things. You have to really be careful and monitor this stuff. They're the professionals, so I'm not going to question that, but it's real out there. So you just know the type of heat that I'm dealing with out there sitting, trying to hold a camera and keep my phone cool enough to still make videos. But next up, something was hilarious, dude. Sean Jefferson, the wide receiver coach, somehow wore football pads. I don't know where he got the pads from, shoulder pads and the helmet. He had them on there. He was doing a drill with the wide receivers, trying to knock them around. And it was just funny seeing a 54-year-old man wearing the pads, but also that's the type of style of guy he has. Everybody talks about how he's that father figure type of stern, but you respect him and stuff like that because he'll do stuff like this. Even at his grown age of 54, I'll say ripe age of 54, he was out there mixing it up a little bit with the wide receivers, trying to push them around, give them a legit look. Since they were in full pass, he was in full pass. That way, you can't make no excuse on about the heat or anything at that time. He didn't wear full pads the whole time, but I think it's just a good testament to the type of coaches that we have. So speaking of another type of coach we have, the question was asked to Frank Wright about DeAngelo Hall, one of our defensive backs coach, and Frank was very, very giving a lot of praise to DeAngelo because he talked about how a lot of players have that itch and stuff about playing, and it's hard for them to transition, especially a guy like DeAngelo Hall who talked a lot of trash, was a very emotional type of player, how it's hard for them to make that transition to be a coach. But he talked about how he's taking that on seamlessly. He just looks like a type of guy that is supposed to be coaching, even though he just came out of the media and stuff. He said he just sees that transition has been so quick and seamless for a guy, from a player to coach, that it's not something that he normally sees when guys try to get out of it. But he knows that DeAngelo Hall is kind of made for coaching, and got to give respect to that. And Keith Taylor even shouted out how he was. How DeAngelo Hall had an effect on them and how he has the respect of everybody because everybody knows what type of career he had, the 40 picks in his career, just the length of time that he played, and just what he did and as a player in this league. can't be denied. And so that type of respect and resume preceding you, you're going to get respect from the younger guys, and you can instill some game on those guys. So I love having these type of former player type of coaches like this. They're a little bit younger, that can kind of speak that language a little bit more. They're a little bit they're not as far removed as some other coaches. So I love that type of energy. But you guys let me know down below in the comments how you feel about any of the rapid fire things that I brought up. We're turning a page to one more day's practice tomorrow. So make sure you are subscribed to get that one and turn on those bell icons. A day off on Monday, and I'm back at it again on Tuesday. I may go live on Monday. You guys let me know down below if you think I should go live, or do you want me to do like maybe another film breakdown or another concept video like that with some other plays that I haven't really showed on these videos, just going into some detail. So you guys let me know down below in the comments. I appreciate everybody's support. This is the Necessary Bluntness Sports Talk. I'll see you next time. Peace.